This time right between the eyes.
The 1962 classic The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance didn't just capture the end of the Wild West on screen, it exposed the brutal truth about how legends are born from lies. At a time when America is grappling with misinformation, political theater, and the gap between myth and reality, this film's most famous line says it all: "When the legend becomes fact, print the legend." That sounds like our reality. In a world drowning in spin, fake stories, and manufactured heroes, this movie saw it coming decades ago. But here's the real story. Behind the scenes, chaos. John Wayne and director John Ford, best friends for years, turned into enemies. The set became a war zone. Egos exploded. Friendships shattered. We've got 20 wild facts about the film nobody talks about, including the bitter feud that changed Hollywood forever. This is going to get messy. Let's dive in. Why did it have to be a black and white movie? There's no offense with movie productions that choose to shoot their films in black and white. However, there's been an upgrade in the way things are done, and even as far back as the 60s, they didn't like the idea of black and white when there were other options. Why, you might ask? Well, the answer is obvious. They just wanted color on their screens. You'll agree it makes things better, don't you? Let's look at what really happened in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Why did they go for black and white? John Ford spoke on the matter, and he had many reasons for doing so. He said it added to the tension. The one reason that shook tables, however, was the low budget. You heard that right. Paramount was cutting costs, which was why the film was shot on the studio's sound stages. If there were no money restraints, John would have been in Monument Valley using Technicolor stock. John Ford wasn't the only one who confirmed this. William Clothier, the cinematographer, also shared his side. There was one reason, and one reason only. Paramount was cutting costs. Otherwise, we would have been in Monument Valley or Brackettville, and we would have had color stock. John had to accept those terms or not make the film. After this reveal, people questioned why they didn't prepare a fair budget. If anything is left out, it shouldn't have been the color stock. John Ford would disagree with you on this. In an interview, he said he didn't fancy filming in color. In black and white, you've got to be very careful. You've got to know your job, lay your shadows in properly, get your perspective right. You might say I'm old-fashioned, but black and white is real photography. They did their best they could and gave an epic movie. Guess it doesn't matter if they made a black or white history. A historical honor. Well, it did get the recognition after all. In 2007, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. They described it as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. The American Film Institute also recognized this film on its list. In 2003, it was included in the institution's 100 Years, 100 Heroes and Villains. It also nominated Tom Doniphan as its hero in the category. In 2008, a quote from the film made it to the 100 Years 100 Movie Quote category. The quote nominated was by Maxwell Scott. "This is the West, sir. When the legend becomes fact, print the legend." In 2008, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance was nominated in the Western Film category in the Institute's 10 Top 10. It was nominated for several prestigious awards over the years. The Western Heritage Award, the Oscar, and the Golden Laurel recognized how great a movie it was. This was a huge win for the production company, as they had encountered several dead ends before the movie's release. A once A-list director thought the film was a total waste. He dismissed The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance as a lesser. We wonder what he had to say after the film took the world by storm. If the production company had a comeback for this director, it would be never say never. First time, John Wayne said the word. You might be wondering why it's so. John Wayne's first use of the word pilgrim was so fascinating. You would think that he said the word pilgrim a lot. Yes, he did, but only in one movie, so much so that he was recognized for it. Wayne said the word 25 times in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Other actors and celebrities use the word when imitating John Wayne. What did you think of the word when you were younger? Did calling someone a pilgrim refer to that group of people who left America and brought about Thanksgiving? You might be right. In Liberty Valance, Jimmy Stewart's character was called a pilgrim, a man who had come west from somewhere back east. The vital feud between two legendary stars. For decades, fans have viewed hungry blogs, and even the mainstream media have speculated about a fight between John Wayne and Lee Marvin. They both have strong characters and seemed not to agree on core topics, so fans thought that translated into their work. Here's the side of the story no one's ever told you. Wayne worked with Lee on a project a year before the movie was filmed. He was thrilled by Lee's talent and suggested him for the role of Valance after their time together in the Comancheros in 1961. Fans think this is admirable. However, Wayne didn't do it without a reason. He said Lee was the only cast member who could get away with just about anything on the set. He loved Lee's work and World War II service as a Marine, but that wasn't his reason for proposing him to the production. It was his vibrant personality that drew Wayne in. One day he came on the set and Lee whistled loudly through his teeth. The crew froze, certain there would be trouble. Instead, Ford just smiled, because he recognized that what Marvin was doing was giving the Admiral's whistle and piping the director. In that moment, Wayne knew he had made the right choice. It didn't take the viewers long to realize. However, acting at the time wasn't a walk in the park for Lee. He had issues with his first scene. He struggled to fit his character, resulting in countless takes. You might remember a scene where Lee angrily shouted, "Now!" That was John Ford's idea. He instructed the stage driver not to throw down the cash box when Marvin demanded it, and it was enough to get Lee into character. A feud that wasn't speculation. You heard that right. The tension between this cast member and the director was uncanny. The media didn't have to speculate on this story. Many other cast members witnessed it. Wayne and John Ford never saw eye to eye. You can imagine how uncomfortable it must have been for Wayne to have bad blood with a film director. He never made issues with Ford, but somehow he always got on his bad side. James Stewart confessed that Wayne asked him a rather unexpected question midway through filming. He said, "Why are you never the target of John Ford's venomous remarks?" Although James didn't give him an answer, it didn't take Wayne long to figure it out. He realized that Ford had a favorite. The truth was so glaring. Toward the end of filming, the director asked James what he thought of Woody Strode's costume for the film's beginning and end when the actors were playing their parts 25 years older. James said how he felt about them. "It looks a bit like Uncle Remus to me." Ford responded, "What's wrong with Uncle Remus?" The next thing he did was unexpected. He called the crew's attention and put James in the spotlight. "One of our players doesn't like Woody's costume. Now, I don't know if Mr. Stewart has a prejudice against Negroes, but I just wanted you all to know about it." James couldn't believe it. He felt betrayed by someone whom he thought highly of. In a later conversation with Wayne, who's always getting picked at, he said, "I wanted to crawl into a mouse hole." Wayne, who had gotten used to the reactions from Ford, responded, "Well, welcome to the club. I'm glad you made it." A retaliation from an angry cast member. Many people have heard of Ford's resentment toward Wayne, but few know why it happened or whether Wayne ever stood up for himself. Well, he did, but in a rather unusual way. Let's get into how it all started. At first, Wayne did not know why he was getting hated on. That's until Lee Van Cleef let the cat out of the bag. He said the studio had its eyes on Wayne and wanted him in the film. He wasn't Ford's choice, but he had to listen to the higher-ups. He was angry at the studio's intrusion, and Wayne was his punching bag. In an interview, Van Cleef exposed how Ford really felt. He didn't want Wayne to think he was doing him any favor. He poured his frustration on the actor, who was clueless about what transpired. He made it his mission to taunt Wayne throughout the filming. It seemed there was more to Ford's resentment. It couldn't have gone so hard on Wayne because the studio insisted. There was something else. Some people say he held a grudge for the uncredited partnership with Wayne. In 1960, Wayne's film Alamo made it to the screen, and Ford wasn't credited for it. It seemed he carried that resentment for a long while. He was harsh to Wayne during filming and never bothered to get his input. Wayne suggested a minor scene change, and Ford lost his mind. He screamed at Wayne, "I take you out of 8-day westerns, I put you in big movies, and you give me a stupid suggestion like that." You might be wondering if this was the point Wayne fought back. No, it wasn't. He never confronted Ford. However, there was so much a man could take. He was so hurt by Ford's constant mistreatment that one day he lost it. He took it out on Woody Strode. While filming an exterior shot on a horse-drawn cart, he almost lost control of the horses and knocked Strode away when he attempted to help. When the horses stopped, he tried to pick a fight with the Strode. Suddenly, Ford called out, "Don't hit him, Woody, we need him." Strode knew that Wayne acted out of character as he never threw a fit on set and always tried to be professional. "I blame Ford for the friction on set. What a miserable film to make," Strode said. If anyone were in a position to give such remarks, it would be Strode. He worked with Ford on 2 films, Sergeant Rutledge in 1960 and Two Rode Together in 1961. As much as he had doted on Ford and called him the greatest director he ever worked for, he also knew Ford was a piece of work. There you have it. You now understand what caused the tension. Would you agree that Wayne was a real gentleman? Moving on to the next fact. The scary age gaps. You won't believe the age difference between some of the actors. O.Z. Whitehead, who played a teenager, was 50 years old in real life. Here's a shocker. Denver Pyle, who played his father, was 9 years younger. The film producers were definitely thinking outside the box to assemble the cast list. While John Wayne and James Stewart played characters younger than 30 years, they were older. Wayne was 54 when the movie was filmed, while Stewart was 53. You might not know this, but the age difference between the actors and the characters they played was a major factor in the decision to use black and white. If it hadn't been used, Stewart's age would have been too noticeable, as he played a young lawyer who had just graduated from law school and had moved west without years of practice. It wasn't easy to cast an older man in the role of Stoddard. He even considered using a younger actor, but that would mean one thing, that John Wayne was too old to play Doniphan. You've got to say kudos to whoever came up with the plot and characters. It was an epic display. The famous director. You've heard his name too many times already. John Ford was the director of The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. He loved his role so much that he always wanted to call the shots. On Lee Marvin's first day on the set, he called him over and said, "You just did a movie with Wayne. He did some directing on that, right? Well, that's not happening here. Wayne's not doing anything on this picture, but what I tell him." He kept to his words as he led the team from start to finish on his ideas and expertise. He only shot just what he needed with very little extra coverage. He also preferred to keep the number of takes to a minimum. He believed that after the first few, the actors get tired and jaded, and their performances lack spontaneity. He also liked to work with the same people over and over again. He could count on them to know what he wanted and give it to him on the first take. Aside from the studio's decision to cast certain members, Ford was happy with everything else. Edmund O'Brien said, "I have never seen Ford happier than he was in making this. He came on the set positively beaming every morning, and that was not the usual thing with him." O'Brien also said everyone involved seemed to enjoy making the film. He did a great job as several big names commended the film. Sergio Leone said that this was his favorite John Ford film because it was the only film where Ford learned about something called pessimism. Sergio isn't the only one who has a takeaway from this film. There's something for you, too. Did you know that Valance addresses several characters as dude as far back as 1870 to 1960s? No, it was the same usage as you know it now. It was used to address overdressed city dwellers who visited rural areas. It's shocking, isn't it? In 1960, surfer culture adopted the term to mean friend. That's something new. As much as Ford argued that he loved filming in black and white, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance was his last film in black and white. Would you call him hypocritical for that? For all you know, he saw the light and changed his mind. Big discussions about the poster. You might ask, how important are film posters? It's more vital than you think, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance was proof of this. Did you know James received top billing over Wayne on promotional posters and in the trailers? However, Wayne's screen card appears first and slightly higher on a signpost than the movie. You want to know why it happened this way? We're back in the studio and with the higher-ups again. They decided it was more commercially profitable to have Wayne's name appear first on theater marquees before James's. As much as Ford resented Wayne, he too agreed on this. In an interview, he remarked on the poster choice. Wayne actually played the lead, Ford said to Peter Bogdanovich. Jimmy Stewart had most of the side sequences with dialogue, but Wayne was the central character, the motivation for the whole thing. Ford said. "Next time you hear about a fuss over posters, know that it's worth the shenanigans." Over the years, countless productions have ensured that they keep the essence of their creations and spark viewers' interest. The secret to this is all in the posters. If you have a great poster, you might get good ratings. You can count on viewers to watch your film if they find your posters worthwhile. The legendary actor John Wayne has proven why he deserves to be the viewer's choice. He took on several characters and played different roles, but one thing resonated throughout his films. He was a good guy. He stood up for what was right. He fought against what was wrong. All the grannies and papas who watched John growing up all wanted to be like him. They loved his cowboy roles. He wasn't Superman or Batman, but he always played characters who were like superheroes. He didn't possess the ability to see through walls or leap over tall buildings in a single bound. However, he did all he could to help those around him. It wasn't just Wayne's characters in films. He was a good guy in real life. His talent was exceptional, and not many actors have come close to his staying power in Hollywood. Fans loved him, and even to this day they purchase his merchandise at stores across the country. His black velvet portrait shows what a legend he was. In The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, John Wayne delivered his role despite the challenges. He never hid his struggles during filming. He felt it was a tough task and wondered why everyone had well-rounded characters. In an interview, he expressed this: "I just had to wander around in Tom Doniphan's character and try to make a part for myself. When someone suggested that my role was complicated and ambiguous, I fired back. There's nothing like ambiguity. Perversion and corruption masquerade as ambiguity. I don't like ambiguity. I don't trust ambiguity." Despite his discomfort with his character, he brought his best foot forward and made it a great film. John Wayne won the Golden Laurel in 1963 for Top Action Performance. These days, people hardly want to be Lee Marvin. Although he did a phenomenal job as the bad guy or cowboy, people who were not born when John passed love him. During shooting, the actor was already suffering from lung cancer, although it was not diagnosed until 1964. His demise was devastating to fans who admired his personality. He gave not just young men, but everyone else, a lesson on how to be a good person. Many wondered how it happened. That's a question that'll never get an answer to. He always seemed to be able to pick the movie roles that embodied exactly who and how you were supposed to be. The not-so-glamorous side of the story. We're about to get into the part that no one ever talks about. It's the little pieces that made The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance a great film. Did you know Gene Pitney released the Burt Bacharach-Hal David song The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance in 1962? The song did well on the rating boards and peaked at number 4 in the United States. You would think his work was used for the screenplay adaptation? No, it wasn't. Although his work had the same title, it was not used in the film because of a publishing dispute between Famous Music and Paramount Pictures. The production crew also thought the song was considered too modern for the film's 19th century setting. Are they right or wrong? You tell me. Here's another side of the story you didn't hear about. John Ford faced significant criticism. Many questioned his skills and thought he wasn't a great director. His grandson confirmed this in an interview. Many people involved in the shooting remarked on my grandfather's lack of energy and complete disregard for details such as background effects. I don't believe that. He had his style of putting things together, and he deserved the respect. Lindsay Anderson didn't quite agree with Ford's grandson. In his book-length study of the director, he says, "No doubt this was yet another instance of Ford's growing impatience with the business of shooting. It was no longer fun. He resented the demands of narrative, of crowd-pleasing spectacle, the trappings of art, and in places the work suffered." Many others sided with Anderson on this. Despite colleagues pointing out Ford's many flaws, they couldn't deny his professionalism during work hours. He always did what it took to get his ideas out. During filming of the Stagecoach Holdup, James Stewart couldn't memorize his lines and kept missing them. Ford had directed countless films. He understood what had happened to James and immediately saved the day. He walked over to James and repeated quietly in his ear, "You are not a coward, you are not a coward." It did the job. James suddenly felt the nervousness leave. It was the cue he needed to nail the take. A movie that rebranded English phrases. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance didn't just change the era of film production, it also did a number on English vocabulary. Famous newspaper editor Dutton Peabody picked up a phrase from the movie. It refers to bad guys as Liberty Valance and his myrmidons. It's not your everyday word usage, but you have to admit it was brilliant. The myrmidons were figures of ancient Greek mythology, skilled warriors in Homer's Iliad commanded by Achilles. They were also known for their unwavering loyalty to their leader. In pre-industrial Europe, the term could be used as robots would be today. Oxford English Dictionary explains the term to mean a hired ruffian or a devoted follower, one who executes orders without question, protest, or pity, an unquestioning follower. Isn't it fascinating that Dutton could catch a phrase from the movie? In another article, he recited the St. Crispin's Day speech from William Shakespeare's Henry V. The speech, given just before Henry V's army defeats a superior French force. He used this to predict the upcoming gun battle between Ransom Stoddard and gunslinger Liberty Valance. It's amazing how things come back. One phrase later, and we had a future teller. Another famous phrase from The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is, "Print the legend." It was culled from Craig McDonald's crime novel about the death of Ernest Hemingway, a study of photography in the American West, and a book by Scott Amon about John Ford. The phrase, "print the legend," is often used in writing or discussion about a person or event whose fame has surpassed the facts. The music blend. The music score is the most eccentric part of this film. Cyril Mockridge composed the score, but there were improvisations in some of the scenes. Ford used Alfred Newman's Anne Rutledge theme from Young Mr. Lincoln for the scene involving Hallie's relationships with Doniphan and Stoddard. In an interview with Bogdanovich, he explained his choice of Alfred's theme. "I reprised the theme in both films to evoke repressed desire and lost love." Catherine Kalanick, a film scholar, took sides with Ford. She said, "Anne Rutledge's theme encodes longing and fleshes out the failed love affair between Hallie and Tom Doniphan, the growing love between Hallie and Rancy Stoddard, and the traumatic loss experienced by Hallie over her choice of one over the other, none of which is clearly articulated by dialogue. It had to be through songs, and Ford knew the perfect score to illustrate the scene. Some verses of the song, "There'll Be a Hot Time in the Old Town Tonight," were also played in scenes by bar musicians and a marching band. The song, which would have been a perfect score, never made the list. The Burt Bacharach-Hal David song for Gene Pitney, "The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance," would have been the theme song for the film, but you remember what happened. Pitney was in the studio about to record when he heard the film had been released. In an interview, he disclosed that it wasn't just about copyright issues. The film company disapproved of the song for the opening credits because its lyrics give away the film's surprise ending. You know, spoilers mean bad business for any film company. The picture was released on April 18, 1962, and it reached the Billboard Hot 100 in a week. It also made the top 10 hits on several charts. In 2010, the Western Writers of America chose it as one of the top 100 Western songs of all time. The accolades. There were great comments on the 1962 film. Lee Marvin's wife confirmed after his demise that this was her all-time favorite of the movies he made. The monthly Film Bulletin commended Ford in a rather captivating way. Its publication read, "Ford had lost none of his talent for catching the real heart, humor, and violent flavor of the Old West, despite the notable rustiness of his technique." A.H. Weiler of the New York Times wrote, "Mr. Ford, who has struck more gold in the West than any other filmmaker, also has mined a rich vein here." Another writer from the Washington Post said the film was a performance. John L. Scott of the Los Angeles Times wrote, "Director Ford is guilty of a few lengthy, slow periods in his storytelling, but for the most part, the old, reliable Ford touches are there." The New York Times called Liberty Valance one of the great Western classics. It questions the role of myth in forging the legends of the West, while setting this theme in the elegiac atmosphere of the West itself, set off by the aging Stewart and Wayne. Other cast members of the production also received credits for their delivery in the film. Edith Head's costumes were nominated for an Academy Award for Best Costume Design in Black and White. She was one of the few Westerns ever nominated in that category. The backlash. There will always be movie critics, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance wasn't any different. Many critics thought the final act was a letdown. One contemporary review came from Variety. It read, "The movie was entertaining and emotionally involved. However, it seemed the film had ended 20 minutes earlier. It would have been a taut, cumulative study of the irony of heroic destiny, instead of concluding with condescending, melodramatic, anticlimactic strokes. What should have been left to enthrall the imagination is spelled out until there is nothing left to savor or discuss." Although the Monthly Film Bulletin gave Ford his credits, it also agreed with Variety. It read, "The final anticlimactic 20 minutes destroyed the value of the disarming simplicity and natural warmth which are Ford's everlasting stock in trade." Richard C. of The Washington Post questioned some narratives about the film. He wrote, "I was bothered by the incredulous fact that the lively townsfolk of Shinbone didn't polish off Valance for themselves. On television, he would have been dispatched by the second commercial, and the villainy would have passed to some shadowy employer, some ruthless rancher who didn't want statehood." Brendan Gill of The New Yorker also came hard on Ford. He called it a parody of Mr. Ford's best work. The commercial success. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance was released in April 1962. It didn't just create buzz among viewers, it was also a commercial success. The estimated cost of production was $3.2 million, and it grossed $8 million. It became a moneymaker at the British box office and ranked as the 15th highest-grossing movie of 1916 too. The film's political view.
Back to town, sir. Is Drew the sugar run for...
No, hold on, Miss Scott. Now, who am I giving this interview to?
Many people don't know this. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance ranks among the best political films. Only a few realized how well this film captured the state's political issues. Jack Hawkins of Slash Film named Liberty Valance the best feature of John Wayne's career, praising the film's meditations on violence, the state, and the individual. Rich Brody from The New Yorker also commended its political inclusivity. He said, "It is the greatest American political movie because it depicts a free press, town meetings, statehood debates, and the civilizing influence of education in frontier America." Many other political analysts gave their take on the film, and it was uniformly positive. They said it was one of Ford's best Western projects. It was complete and self-contained in a way that approaches perfection, and singled out Liberty Valance as the most pensive and thoughtful of the group. There you have it, a movie of the century that political leaders would always reference. The love interest.
Thank you, Jason. On time.
Liberty Valance and James Stewart were the opposite of each other. While Valance was a lawless frontier, Shinbone Village was James Stewart, the big city lawyer, determined to rid Shinbone of Valance. However, these two shared a middle ground, their love interest. Vera Miles gave a great performance in the film. She featured in 3 of the most critically acclaimed films of all time, the 1956 film, The Searchers. She also appeared in the 1960 film, Psycho, and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. She signed a huge contract with Alfred Hitchcock, the renowned filmmaker. The vision was for her to become the greatest star the world had ever seen. Sadly, the contract didn't fall through, and Vera was taken out of her leading role in Alfred Hitchcock's movie Vertigo in 1958. Her career spanned nearly 50 years in Hollywood, and she's recognized as one of the greatest actresses of her century. A trip down memory lane. 2022 marked the 60 years anniversary of the classic Western film. The movie is still considered one of the greatest on-screen collaborations. The storyline touches vital topics, including the press, race, democratic process, and education. It also captures the striving for a free society. Yes, some critics have called the century-long film a flawed lens. Despite this, they can't deny how much a simple story carries lessons that could pass for a syllabus for a civic course. It was as entertaining as it was thought-provoking. The plot. Everyone agrees the plot for this film deserves a stellar rating. It portrayed Liberty Valance as the bad actor and a reckless person who cares little for law and order. He lived all his life from the benefits of lawlessness. His supporters were the cattle barons who tried to keep the territory in a transitional phase. Rance Stoddard portrayed the avatar of the future. He recognized the law and enforced order. There was Tom, the middleman and realist. He believed that violence was often needed to move the world forward. He also believed Rance didn't understand this perspective and always felt the need to be his guardian angel. In several scenes, he helped Rance escape or stood beside him in a fight. However, when push came to shove, Rance wasted no time in squaring off Valance with a gun. He was always ready to die to defend his beliefs. John Ford explored the use of force and peace in bringing justice. It was a reflection of America's history and a reminder that the state is an ongoing project. What do you think about The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance? Do you think the movie had a perfect ending? Do you agree with the critics of this film? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.